Admiral Du Young's tentacles twitched nervously as he watched the human delegation enter the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council. In his 300 years of diplomatic service, he had never seen a species quite like this. They walked on two legs, had no protective scales, and wore what appeared to be decorative cloth over their soft bodies. How had such fragile-looking creatures managed space travel? The human ship's discovery had been purely accidental. Captain Jai-Ho Park's merchant vessel, the Star Wanderer, had been making a routine supply run when they stumbled upon Earth's first attempts at faster-than-light travel. The resulting meeting had led to this historic moment, Earth's official introduction to the Galactic Council. "Welcome to Central Station," Du Young said through the Universal Translator. "I am Admiral Du Young, Chief of First Contact Relations." The lead human, a female named Han Subin, stepped forward with a smile. "Thank you, Admiral. On behalf of Earth, we are honored to be here." Du Young noticed how the other council members leaned forward in their gravity chairs, studying the humans with various sensing organs. The crystalline representative sparkled with curiosity patterns, while the Methane Brothers' atmosphere tanks bubbled with excitement. The meeting was going well. Too well, Du Young thought. In his experience, first contact meetings never went this smoothly. Something always went wrong. As if the universe had heard his thoughts, the station's warning systems began to wail. "Admiral." His assistant rushed into the chamber. "The atmospheric shields are malfunctioning. The backup systems aren't responding." Du Young felt his skin change to a worry purple. Central Station's atmospheric shields were the only thing keeping the various alien atmospheres separate and properly pressurized. If they failed, the results would be catastrophic. "Evacuate the chamber," he ordered, his tentacles signing emergency codes to the other council members. "We must." "How long until complete shield failure?" Han Subin interrupted, already pulling out what looked like a data tablet. 17 minutes, the assistant reported. "But the control systems are locked. We can't even access them manually because the maintenance tunnels are already depressurizing." Subin nodded, studying the station schematics that Captain Jai-Ho had quickly pulled up on a holographic display. "These maintenance tunnels," she said, pointing at a particular junction, "they connect to the main shield generators." "Yes, but as I said, they're depressurizing. No one can survive in there without proper." Subin turned to her colleague. Tajin, hold my beer." The entire chamber went silent as she handed her drink container to the startled man beside her. Du Young noticed several council members sensing organs widen in confusion at the strange human phrase. "What are you planning?" Du Young asked, his tentacles curling with concern. "Those tunnels are still at 20% atmosphere, right?" Subin asked, already removing her formal diplomatic jacket. "That's about what we get on Earth's tallest mountains. I used to do high-altitude climbing before joining the diplomatic corps. I can make it through. But the security locks. I saw the override panel design in the schematics. It's similar to old Earth submarine systems. I can handle it." She was already heading toward the maintenance access point, picking up a toolkit from a nearby emergency station. "The chance of success is less than 2.3%, the probability council member chimed in, their crystalline form flashing with calculation patterns. "The combination of low atmosphere, time constraints, and the complexity of alien technology makes this attempt statistically impossible." Subin flashed a grin that would soon become infamous in council records. "Good thing humans don't care much about impossible odds." She turned to Captain Jai-Ho. "The access codes from the schematics. Sending them to your tablet now," Jai-Ho replied, his fingers dancing over his holographic controls. "Try not to die in there. The paperwork would be horrible." The council watched in stunned silence as Subin opened the maintenance access and slipped inside. The environmental warnings continued to blare as minutes ticked by. Du Young found himself wrapping his tentacles together in what humans would later learn was the equivalent of nail-biting. Through the station's internal cameras, they watched as Subin navigated the partially depressurized tunnels, moving with surprising speed despite the thin atmosphere. When she reached the main control junction, her movements became precise and focused, even as warning lights flashed around her. "Impossible," the crystalline representative whispered as Subin's hands flew over the alien control panel, implementing the override sequence. The neural patterns required to operate unfamiliar technology in an oxygen-deprived state. With 30 seconds to spare, the warning sirens stopped. The atmospheric readings returned to normal, and the backup systems came online properly. When Subin emerged from the maintenance tunnel, her face was red from exertion, but she wore a triumphant smile. Shield systems restored and stabilized, she reported professionally, walking over to retrieve her drink from Tajin. Now, where were we in the diplomatic discussions? The chamber remained silent for several moments before erupting in a chaos of questions and exclamations in various languages. Du Young noticed his assistant frantically updating the first contact protocols, adding a new warning section titled Human Beverage Holding Requests and Associated Probability Anomalies. Later that evening, after the humans had retired to their assigned quarters, Du Young reviewed the incident recordings. He paused at the moment Subin handed over her drink, studying her expression carefully. "Computer," he said quietly, "add new priority alert protocol. If any human uses the phrase 'hold my beer' or similar beverage-related statements before attempting an action, immediately elevate situation threat level assessment." "Threat level parameters?" the computer inquired. Do Young thought about the calm confidence in Subin's eyes just before she entered the maintenance tunnels, about how she had defied statistical probability with seemingly casual ease. "Maximum," he answered. "Always maximum." The computer chimed in acknowledgement, and somewhere in its vast databases, a new protocol was born, one that would soon become the most frequently triggered alert in Galactic Council history. Do Young wrapped his tentacles around his own drink, a gesture he'd unconsciously copied from the humans. Something told him this was just the beginning. These humans, with their strange customs and their habit of casually achieving the impossible, were going to change everything. He was right, but even he couldn't have predicted just how much chaos a simple phrase like "hold my beer" would bring to the galaxy. Galactic Intelligence Director Kita stared at the growing list of incidents on his holographic screen. His office, high in the Central Station's intelligence tower, gave him a perfect view of the busy space lanes below, but his attention was fixed firmly on the reports before him. "Another one?" he asked his assistant, Lieutenant Yanji, who happened to be one of the few humans recently assigned to the Galactic Intelligence Division. "Yes, sir," Yanji replied, trying to hide her amusement. This time it was on Mining Station 7. A human engineer fixed their plasma reactor by. "Well, you should watch the recording." Keita played the security footage. The mining station's reactor was clearly in critical condition, its containment field flickering dangerously. The station's chief engineer, an 8-armed mechanic from the spiral arm species, was declaring the situation hopeless. Then a human stepped forward. The footage showed him handing his coffee mug to a nearby worker with those now dreaded words, "Hold my coffee, this reminds me of my old motorcycle engine." Keita paused the recording. "Please tell me he didn't." "He did, sir, using spare parts from a food synthesizer and what he called duct tape. He managed to stabilize the reactor. The spiral arm engineers are still trying to understand how it worked." Keita made a sound that humans would interpret as a sigh. "That's the 5th incident this week, and it's only 3rd day." Another alert flashed on his screen. This one was from a military training facility. Keita opened it with a sense of growing dread. The report detailed how Ensign Minho, during a routine shuttle pilot certification, had encountered a catastrophic system failure. Instead of ejecting as per protocol, he had turned to his instructor and said, "Hold my energy drink. I saw this in a video game once." What followed was a recording of Minho piloting the damaged shuttle backward through an asteroid field while humming something called Space Oddity, using the shuttle's broken gravitational stabilizers to create an improvised asteroid deflection field. Lieutenant Yanji, Kita said slowly, as our human relations specialist, perhaps you could explain your species' apparent ability to bend probability when someone holds their beverage. Yanji shifted uncomfortably. Well, sir, it's not exactly a power. It's more of a cultural thing. When humans say, hold my beer, or any drink really, it's like announcing that we're about to do something either very impressive or very stupid. Sometimes both. But the success rates are impossible. Our probability computers have started displaying error messages every time they try to calculate the odds of these incidents. That's the thing about humans, sir. We tend to do better when someone tells us something is impossible. Their conversation was interrupted by another alert. This one was marked urgent from Diplomatic Section 12. Kita opened it immediately. The scene showed a diplomatic meeting between two species that had been at war for decades. The human mediator, Ambassador Song in Newell, was facing a particularly difficult negotiation when she suddenly smiled and handed her teacup to one of the delegates. No, Kita whispered. Watch this. Hey, Newell said in the recording. I think I know how to solve this 300-year territorial dispute with a simple game from Earth called rock, paper, scissors. Both Kita and Yanji watched in amazement as the ambassador somehow managed to turn an ancient children's game into a complex but fair system for sharing the disputed space territories. Even more incredibly, both species agreed to it. How? Kita asked, his sensory appendages twitching in confusion. The probability of both sides accepting such a solution was. Let me guess, Yanji interrupted with a smile. The computer said it was impossible. The exact odds were. Kita checked the report. 1 in 7,400,022. Sir, if I may suggest something. Yanji pulled up another holographic display. Instead of trying to understand why this happens, perhaps we should focus on developing better protocols for when it does. She showed him a pattern analysis of all recorded hold my beverage incidents. They had increased by 300% since first contact, and each one seemed to defy probability in increasingly spectacular ways. For example, she continued, we could establish guidelines for evacuating unnecessary personnel when those words are spoken. Maybe set up dedicated observation teams to document these events for study. And perhaps most importantly, we should start keeping spare beverages in all emergency kits. Keita was about to respond when his terminal chimed again. This time, it was a live feed from a cargo port in the Outer Rim. A human pilot named Jinwoo was about to attempt to dock a damaged ship using only manual controls and what he called the power of math and caffeine. Lieutenant, Kita said wearily, please tell me that's not a container ship carrying highly explosive materials. It is, sir, and you might want to watch this part. She pointed to the corner of the screen where Jinwoo was carefully placing his coffee cup in a secure holder. Implementing emergency protocols, Kita announced, pressing several buttons on his console. All ships within 50 kilometers are to maintain safe distance. Alert medical teams to stand by. And someone get me the contact information for that human insurance company we signed up with last month. They watched as Jinwoo proceeded to execute a docking maneuver that, according to every known law of physics, should have torn his ship apart. Instead, the massive container ship settled perfectly into its berth with barely a scratch. You know what the strangest part is? Yanji said as they watched the port authorities rush to secure the ship. He didn't even spill his coffee. Keita spent the rest of his day updating the galactic intelligence protocols. Under human behavioral patterns, extreme risk category, he added a new section. When a human entrusts their beverage to another's care, do not attempt to calculate the odds of their success. Instead, prepare for the impossible to become merely improbable, and the improbable to become routine. As he finished the report, his computer chimed one final time. A message from Admiral Du Young appeared. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Bring coffee. Lots of it. The humans have discovered something called energy drinks, and we need to update our threat assessment protocols again. Kaita looked at Yanji, who was trying very hard not to laugh. Lieutenant, he said, I believe I'm beginning to understand why your species explored space before developing proper safety protocols. Oh, Yanji raised an eyebrow. Yes, you didn't explore space because you were ready. You explored it because someone said it was impossible, and someone else said, hold my beer. This time, Yanji didn't hold back her laughter. Sir, you have no idea how right you are. Wait until you hear about how we invented powered flight. Kaita decided he didn't want to know. He had enough impossible things to deal with already. But as he looked out at the busy space lanes again, he couldn't help but wonder what these remarkable, terrifying humans would do next. And somewhere in the station, a human was probably already saying, hold my drink, while preparing to show the galaxy exactly that. The Stellar Dominion's warships appeared without warning. Their massive black vessels emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Galactic Council's main defense station. The sight made Admiral Du Young's tentacles curl with worry. On the main command screen, the Dominion's Supreme Commander appeared. His metallic scales gleamed under harsh lighting. Galactic Council, he announced, your time of peaceful rule is over. Surrender your stations and colonies to the Dominion, or face destruction. Commander Ta One of the Earth Defense Fleet stood quietly at the back of the command center. He watched as the council members argued about what to do. The Dominion ships were more advanced than anything the council had. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. We have no choice, one council member said. Their technology is too powerful. Perhaps we can negotiate, another suggested. Taiwan stepped forward, holding his coffee cup. Excuse me, he said politely. I have an idea. Admiral Du Young's environmental suit changed color rapidly. Commander Taiwan, please tell me you're just thirsty. Captain Song, Taiwan said, turning to his second-in-command. Hold my coffee. The entire command center fell silent. Several alien officials began backing away from the human commander. Admiral Du Young quickly pressed the station's emergency alert button. The Dominion commander laughed on the screen. What is this? Your station's threat assessment just jumped to maximum. Because of a beverage. Are all council species this strange? Taiwan smiled as he walked to the tactical station. You have impressive ships, he said to the Dominion commander. Very advanced. But did you know that older technology sometimes has interesting advantages? He began pressing buttons on the control panel. The Council's small fleet of outdated defense ships started moving into new positions. What are you doing? The Dominion commander demanded. Your ships are centuries behind ours. You have no chance. Interesting thing about old Earth ships, Taiwan said as he worked. They used to have something called sail power before engines were invented. The key to sailing was understanding how to use the wind to your advantage. The Dominion commander's scales flickered with confusion. There is no wind in space. No, Taiwan agreed. But there are gravitational fields, and solar winds, and magnetic fields, and your very impressive ships create a lot of energy disturbance in space. The tactical display showed the Council's ships spreading out in a pattern that made no sense to anyone except Taiwan. Each ship was positioning itself at specific points around the Dominion fleet. Captain Song, Taiwan called out. Remember those old videos we watched about sailing ships in whirlpools? Song smiled as she held his coffee cup. The ones about how small boats could use the current of a whirlpool to gain speed. Exactly. Taiwan pressed one final button. Now watch this. The Council's ships suddenly fired their old-style engines at full power. The energy disturbance created by their outdated technology interacted with the Dominion ship's advanced field generators. The result was spectacular. A massive spatial distortion formed, like a whirlpool made of starlight and gravity. The Dominion's superior ships, with their powerful energy fields, were caught in their own technology. The spatial distortion pulled them into a tight spiral, trapping them in their own defensive fields. What? What is happening? The Dominion commander shouted. His perfect formation of ships was now spinning helplessly, their advanced systems working against them. Basic physics, Taiwan explained calmly. Your ships generate energy fields that are too perfect, too controlled. Our old ships make messy, chaotic energy patterns. When they mix together, he gestured at the swirling vortex of trapped Dominion ships. Admiral Du Young's tentacles waved in amazement. Commander Taiwan, did you just defeat the most advanced fleet in the galaxy by creating a space whirlpool? Something like that. Taiwan walked over to Captain Song and retrieved his coffee cup. I figured their fancy technology would have trouble handling good old-fashioned chaos. Sometimes the simple solutions work best. On the main screen, the Dominion commander was shouting orders, but his ships couldn't break free. Their advanced engines only made the spatial distortion stronger. Now then, Taiwan said to the trapped commander, should we discuss surrender terms? I suggest you agree quickly before someone else says, hold my beer, and thinks of something even more interesting to do with this whirlpool. The Dominion commander looked at his trapped fleet, then at the human calmly sipping coffee, and made the fastest surrender in galactic military history. Later, in Admiral Du Young's office, the council members gathered to discuss what had happened. The probability calculator was making strange noises as it tried to process the day's events. We must understand, one council member said. How did you know this would work? Taiwan shrugged. I didn't, but I remembered reading about old sea battles on Earth, and I thought, why not try it in space? You risked everything on a theory based on ocean warfare from your planet's ancient history. Admiral Du Young asked. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds crazy, Taiwan admitted, but sometimes crazy works. Indeed, Du Young said. He looked at his computer screen, where the alert system was still trying to calculate the probability of what had just happened. Our systems have added a new warning level above maximum. They're calling it the hold my beer scenario. I don't think our probability computers will ever be the same. As the council members left the office, Captain Song stayed behind for a moment. Sir, she said to Admiral Du Young, you should know that Commander Taiwan got the idea for the space whirlpool while watching entertainment videos about ancient pirates. Du Young's tentacles twitched. Pirates? Yes, sir. He has the entire collection. He was watching them last week and said, you know, some of these old sailing tricks might work in space. Du Young looked out his window at the Dominion ships, still being carefully extracted from the spatial distortion. Captain Song, please tell me humans don't have any more ancient warfare methods they're thinking of adapting to space. Song smiled. Sir, humans have thousands of years of military history to draw from, and that's not even counting our science fiction stories. Science? Fiction. Oh yes, stories we made up about space warfare before we even reached the stars. Very creative stuff. Would you like to borrow some videos? I think you'd especially enjoy the one about using a moon as a slingshot. Du Young quickly changed the subject and made a mental note to update the threat assessment protocols again. He had a feeling the galaxy hadn't seen anything yet. In the weeks that followed, the story spread across the galaxy. The phrase "hold my beer" was officially classified as a strategic military term. The Dominion surrender document included a specific clause prohibiting them from going to war with any species crazy enough to create a space whirlpool using outdated technology and historical naval tactics. And somewhere in the vast library of human entertainment, thousands of old stories about pirates, sailors, and ancient warriors waited to inspire the next impossible feat. The galaxy would never be the same. Science Officer Hai Jin stared at the wall of data in her laboratory on Central Station. After the space whirlpool incident, the Galactic Council had ordered a full scientific investigation of the hold my beer phenomenon. As the lead researcher, she had to make sense of it all. Play the recordings again, she told her computer. All of them, in order of probability deviation. The first hologram showed Han Subin's maintenance tunnel rescue. The second showed Jin Woo's impossible docking maneuver. Then came Commander Tadawan's space whirlpool. Each incident had broken the laws of probability more than the last. What do they all have in common? Hai-Jin muttered, making notes on her tablet. Her research assistant, a young scientist named Engineer Jin Woo, watched from his workstation. Besides the obvious, Jin Woo asked, pointing at his own coffee cup with a smile. Yes, besides the beverage holding. Hai-Jin walked through the holograms. Look at their faces in each recording. The expression just before they do the impossible. The computer zoomed in on each human's face at the crucial moment. They all showed the same thing. Absolute confidence without any doubt. That's it, Hai-Jin exclaimed. Computer, analyze brainwave patterns at these moments. The results appeared instantly. In each case, the human's brain had entered an unusual state. It wasn't adrenaline, or focus, or even determination. It was something entirely new. They're not trying to do the impossible, Hai-Jin said slowly. In their minds, it's not impossible at all. They've somehow convinced themselves that it's already done. The beverage holding is just a trigger. Jin Woo nodded, like a signal to their brain. Someone's holding my drink, so I better do something impressive. Their discussion was interrupted by an emergency alert. A mining colony on the outer rim was facing disaster. Their main reactor was overloading, and the automated systems had failed. No, Hai-Jin whispered as she read the details. The reactor's containment field is creating a quantum cascade. If it fails, half the sector will be destroyed. Jin Woo finished. He was already reaching for his tool belt. I should go. I have experience with reactors. The quantum cascade makes it impossible to approach the reactor, Hai-Jin said. The laws of physics literally break down near it. Even if you could get close, there's no way to. She stopped as Jin Woo held out his coffee cup to her. Jin Woo, no, she said. This is different. This isn't like docking a ship or creating a space whirlpool. We're talking about quantum physics. Actually, Jin Woo said with a grin, I've been studying quantum mechanics as a hobby. Did you know that according to quantum theory, anything is possible? The odds might be incredibly small, but never zero. But the calculations are based on normal probability. Jin Woo looked at the emergency report again. But we've proven that humans break normal probability when someone holds their drink. So, Science Officer Hai-Jin, would you please hold my coffee while I go prove quantum physics wrong? Hai-Jin took the cup automatically. As soon as she did, every alarm in her laboratory began blaring. The threat assessment computers were going crazy, trying to calculate the odds of what Jin Woo was about to attempt. For science, Jin Woo said cheerfully, and headed for the emergency transport pad. The next hour was the longest of Hai-Jin's life. She watched through the colony's cameras as Jin Woo approached the failing reactor. The quantum cascade made the video feed distort and jump, but she could still see him working. What happened next would be debated in scientific circles for years to come. Jin Woo somehow used the quantum cascade itself to stabilize the reactor. He later explained that he treated the breakdown of physics as just another tool in the toolbox. When it was over, Hai-Jin had to sit down. Her laboratory's probability computers had given up completely, displaying only the message, error, reality check failed. How? She asked when Jin Woo returned. The quantum cascade should have made it impossible to even reach the reactor controls. Well, Jin Woo said as he reclaimed his coffee, I figured if physics was breaking down anyway, I might as well use that to my advantage. The quantum cascade was creating zones where normal laws didn't apply. So I just had to redirect them a bit. Redirect quantum physics. Sure. If reality is going to stop making sense, why not help it stop making sense in a useful way? Hai-Jin spent the next week writing her report for the Galactic Council. Her conclusion was both simple and terrifying. Humans didn't just ignore probability. They actively rewrote it. The simple act of having someone hold their drink seemed to create a temporary bubble of altered reality, where the impossible became merely improbable, and the improbable became certain. But why? Admiral Du Young asked during her presentation. Why does it work? Because they believe it will, Hai Jin explained. The drink-holding ritual is like a switch in their brains. Once someone takes their drink, they become absolutely convinced they will succeed. And somehow, the universe agrees. The council chamber erupted in concern, murmuring. One member raised an appendage. Can it be stopped? I wouldn't recommend trying, Hai Jin said. Our research suggests that telling a human something is impossible only makes them more likely to attempt it. And if they attempt it after someone holds their drink, she shuddered. The probability deviation could be catastrophic. So what do? We adapt. Hai Jin brought up her final recommendations. I suggest we create special observation teams for these events. We need to document and study them. And most importantly, we need to start thinking like humans. Thinking like humans. The council members looked horrified. Yes, instead of asking, is this possible? We should start asking, would this be awesome? Because that seems to be the question humans ask themselves before handing someone their drink. After the meeting, Hai Jin returned to her laboratory. Jin Woo was there, working on what looked like a very complicated equation. What are you doing? She asked carefully, noting that his coffee cup was still full. Oh, just some calculations about faster-than-light travel, he said. I have this theory about using quantum entanglement too. Actually, it might be easier to demonstrate. Would you mind holding my coffee? Hai Jin looked at the cup, then at Jin Woo's eager expression, and thought about everything she had learned about human probability manipulation. You know what? She said, reaching for the cup. For science. All across Central Station, the alarm systems began to wail once again. One standard galactic year after the quantum reactor incident, Admiral Du Young stood at his observation window in Central Station. The view had changed significantly. New warning lights now surrounded every human ship, automatically activating whenever someone said those famous words. His computer chimed with the daily report. 57 hold my beer incidents recorded yesterday, it announced. Average probability deviation, 8,000% above normal. No casualties. Property damage minimal. 3 new scientific breakthroughs recorded. Only 3? Du Young asked, his tentacles moving in what humans now recognized as amusement. A quiet day, then. His assistant entered the office carrying several data tablets. Sir, the new protocols are ready for review. The council wants your approval before implementation. Du Young studied the first tablet. The document was titled Official Guidelines for Human Probability Manipulation Events. The contents made him shake his head in wonder. Section 1 stated, when a human hands their beverage to another person, immediately clear the area of non-essential personnel. Establish a safe observation distance based on how impossible the proposed action appears to be. The more impossible it seems, the further back observers should stand. Section 2 covered emergency responses. Do not attempt to stop the human. Do not tell them their planned action is impossible. This will only increase the scale of probability deviation. Instead, document everything. The universe itself may be rewritten, and we need to know how. Section 3 was simply titled Beverages and contained a detailed list of drinks and their associated risk levels. Coffee ranked high. Energy drinks were classified as reality-bending catalysts. Something called Monster Ultra had its own warning label. As Du Young reviewed the protocols, his emergency communicator activated. Admiral, a voice said urgently, we have a situation in the peace conference chamber. What kind of situation? The human delegate, Ambassador Hae-Nul, she just handed her tea to the Dominion representative. Du Young's tentacles curled in surprise. The same Dominion that surrendered after the space whirlpool. Yes, sir. She said something about solving their military aggression problem once and for all. I'm on my way. Du Young hurried to the conference chamber, his mind racing. The Dominion had been a constant threat to peace, even after their surrender. Their militant culture made negotiations nearly impossible. When he arrived, he found Ambassador Hainul standing before a large holographic display. The Dominion delegation sat nervously, their scales changing color rapidly. One of them held her teacup as if it might explode. "The problem," Hainul was saying, "is that your society values strength above all else. So let's work with that." She pressed a button, and the display showed what appeared to be ancient Earth sporting events. "These are called the Olympics," she explained. "For thousands of years, humans used them to turn our violent impulses into friendly competition. Instead of wars, we had games. Instead of battles, we had sports." The Dominion Supreme Commander's scales flickered with interest. "Competition without destruction." "Exactly." Hainul smiled. "And I propose we create something similar for the galaxy. The Galactic Games. Every species can demonstrate their strengths without anyone getting hurt. The Dominion could show off their superior technology in safe, controlled contests." Do Young watched in amazement as the Dominion representatives became more and more excited about the idea. They began suggesting different types of competitions, their natural aggression turning to enthusiasm. "And the winners?" the Supreme Commander asked. "Get bragging rights and shiny medals," Hainul said. "Trust me, that's more than enough. Humans have started wars over sports games before. It's just as satisfying as real conflict, but nobody dies." Within an hour, the Dominion had signed a new peace treaty. They even volunteered to host the first Galactic Games on their homeworld. Their entire civilization would redirect its military-industrial complex to preparing for sporting events. After the meeting, Du Young approached Hainul. "You just solved 1,000 years of militant civilization with the concept of sports." She retrieved her tea from the still stunned Dominion representative. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Besides, I figured if Commander Tadawun could turn ancient sailing tactics into space combat, I could turn ancient Greek games into galactic peace." Later that day, Du Young made his final additions to the new protocols. Under diplomatic incidents, he wrote, "When a human diplomat hands someone their drink, evacuate all negative emotions from the room. Prepare for peace to break out in unexpected ways." As he finished, his computer displayed another alert. In the science division, someone was holding Engineer Jinwoo's coffee while he attempted to, as the report put it, teach quantum physics to behave properly. In the medical bay, a human doctor had just handed over her water bottle before trying to cure a supposedly incurable alien disease. And in the engineering section, a human technician was explaining why someone needed to hold his soda while he invented, in his words, a faster kind of faster-than-light travel. Do Young looked at all these reports and did something he had learned from humans. He laughed. The galaxy had indeed changed. The phrase "hold my beer" was now officially classified as a Class 1 reality-bending phenomenon. Every ship, station, and colony had designated drink holders ready at all times. The Galactic Council had even created a special division just to document and study these incidents. But perhaps the biggest change was in how the galaxy viewed the impossible. Thanks to humans, impossible was now just another word, for hasn't had someone say, "hold my beer," before trying it yet. Do Young made one final note in his personal log. "The humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention." But they're wrong. The mother of invention is someone holding a human's drink while they attempt something that should never work, but somehow does anyway. And perhaps that's exactly what this galaxy needed. As he finished writing, his computer chimed one last time. A human scientist wanted to try something that would, according to the report, make black holes behave themselves. Do Young checked the emergency protocols, alerted the observation teams, and prepared for another miracle. After all, this was the new normal, and he wouldn't have it any other way.